Tanse, good morning. My name is Niki Ashton. I'm the Member of Parliament for Churchill, Kuwait-Nikuski, and I'm honored to be joining you here today with my colleague, Member of Parliament Lori Idlout, NDP critic for Indigenous Services, and chiefs, Grand Chiefs from Northern Manitoba that are here to make a clear call on behalf of our region for the urgent need for an airport in Wasaga First Nation and investment in an all-weather road connecting to Wasaga and the east side road of Lake Winnipeg. Today, I am joined by Chief Harper, the chief of Wasaga First Nation. Wasaga First Nation is one of the largest, most isolated communities in all of Canada. Over 4,000 people live in Wasaga First Nation, a First Nation that doesn't have an all-weather road, a First Nation that doesn't have an airport, a First Nation that is isolated. The people of Wasaga have paid the price of that isolation time and time again. But what's making it worse is climate change. Wasaga First Nation, like all First Nations on the east side of Lake Winnipeg, depend on the ice roads to get what they need in and out of their communities, for people to travel, to access health care, education, and other critical services. However, we know as a result of climate change, these ice roads are lasting less and less, and in fact are almost not even dependable. Right now in northern Manitoba, we're seeing warm weather, the likes we've never seen before. In Wasaga, there isn't enough snow. Where I am, just a little bit further north of Wasaga, we've had record temperatures, warm temperatures that are completely unfamiliar to our communities for this time of year. Wasaga urgently needs the federal government to step up and work with them to build an airport and all-weather road access for them and communities in the region. This is a matter of life and death. You will hear from the chief how people have literally lost their lives as a result of the precarious situations that they face to be able to leave a community that is as isolated as theirs to be able to access urgent medical care. Heartbreaking stories. Stories that the federal government has the power to do justice to. The clear call for an airport has been known to the federal government for decades. Commitments have been made in the past that have been rescinded and not acted on. But now, with the threat of climate change, we have no choice but to act. And so today, we are calling on the federal government to step up, to work with Wasaga First Nation, as well as the province, get to the table and build this airport as soon as possible, given the fact that the clock is ticking. To invest in an all-weather road system for Wasaga and First Nations in our region. I'd now like to briefly introduce our speakers. We will start with hearing from Chief Harper, the Chief of Wasaga First Nation. We will then hear from Youth Chief Serena Harper of Wasaga First Nation. We are then going to hear from Grand Chief Scotty Harper of the Island Lake region, and following that, the Kuwaitan Tribal Council Grand Chief Walter Westesikut. We will also be hearing from my colleague Lori Idlout. I'd now like to ask my good friend, Chief Harper, to address you.
Hello, good to know. Walter Harper discuss Wasaga we megotswe Niki Maozagoa Examamin my megots we Ecogetian Twitchits Mandu Anagetian Enoch Wega Maga Bisayank Kagogetiank Mosama Enabits Oya Wetapugo Kakana Oya Maga Kainakunagets Kabotichigets Eva Enwek Gogutstone Taganashimian we calling the man. Hello, my name is Walter Harper. I'm Chief of the Wasigama Continue Nation. When I came here to Ottawa, I've been coming here time after time. I've been going to Halifax to meet the ministers, and for the longest time, I'm here to tell the story of what we go through without having an airport. This journey, when I became chief, I was a councillor before, and I said to myself, if I ever become chief, that I will remember my mom and her best friend that died from a chopper crash. The year was 1998. They were going from our community to the airport, and just when they took off, something happened to the helicopter, and it plunged right on the ice. The community, the members, they rushed to the accident site, where only there was no survivors. Sometimes when I talk about this, I get emotional, but I have to do this. I have to let the people know that the dangers of going across, even weather, the climate change. Our people have suffered enough. Our elders was promised an airport for the very longest time. When there were leaders, I remember as a young man going into a public meeting where these ministers came. I remember the ministers, they say, we promised to build you an airport, but that day hasn't come. Still today, there's only commitments, there's no real commitments. Those elders that are traveling the journey with me couldn't make it today because they're tired. I brought with me here a youth chief from our school and a youth counselor. I wanted to travel with them here to let them talk about their story, what we go through in our reserve. I had these papers. I had a paper here. I had pinpoints what I was going to talk about, but I'm talking from the heart because I feel why I'm here. And I feel for my people. They don't need to struggle anymore. They don't need to risk their lives going to the airport. Not only that, there's other stories behind what happened. The one story that just recently happened was a young girl had just stepped off from the plane in Centuries Point, our nearest airport, from a medical trip. She tried walking home in freezing rain. She was lost. We lost her 4 days, and after 4 days, we found her in one of the islands where she died. Those are kind of stories that we carry along too. The expenses of going across and getting our food mail, our services is very expensive. I need somebody to act right away, to put a dollar sign on our project. We've already spent $3.5 million in our profits. We bought the Acro Bridge. We already blasted our way to the airport site. We're doing construction. That's how serious we are to continue the work. That's how serious we are. And I just want to thank everyone that that are supporting us with this project, and I hope it's a reality for the community, and very soon. That's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Youth Chief Serena Harper from North Acmac. We have been waiting for an airport for the longest time.
And we'll now turn to Grand Chief Scotty Harper.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Scott Harper, Indigenous Services. Kamay bandaning dunta. Ning chugamakan ansinini ugamao. My name is Grand Chief Scott Harper with Ansinini Ugamao. So I represent the community in Wasagamak and in other surrounding communities. And I'm here to support our communities. And I've heard, the same story over and over again every year of how the difficulty of traveling from the community to the airport. And I've echoed this many times before as well. The need for an airport for the community of Was. And I've 1 year, and I always mention 1 year, how serious and important it is to have the airport in the community. There was a forest fire that came near the community where they had to evacuate most of the community. And without an airport and without a way of transporting, and the only way they do it is by boat. So even at night, it's, to me, that is something that's very serious and very important for the safety of our people. So again, just sharing the same stories. There's so many stories that we've heard and echoed, tried to come to Ottawa, and we need that help. We need that support. I know the community has done the best that they can, and I applaud them for that. They spent their own money to try and start this, and the work that they've done, and I really commend them. But the government needs to step up and help the communities. The value of human life is something that I think about and is very serious. It seems that nobody listens. That's what it feels like. And then the need for an all-weather road for our communities, not only our communities, but the surrounding communities as well. The cost of living has gone up. Fuel, food, especially healthy food. things that are needed. And the amount of the funds that we get, the amount of money that the average community member gets to go to the store where a small bag can cost them $300, where it would cost $20, $30 here in the city. And where is the fairness in this? So again, I'm just here to support and echo the same sentiments of the need that we need for our communities, for the safety of our communities, and the health of our communities. I don't want to hear repeats of the difficulties of living up in these communities. So again, thank you. Amiwa.
We will now hear from Grand Chief Walter Westesakut, and I also acknowledge AMC Grand Chief and MKO Grand Chiefs and invite them to share a few words perhaps after Grand Chief Westesakut.
Good morning. I'm here to support Wasagamag in its quest for an airport and for all-weather road access to the outside world. I work with 11 nations in northern Manitoba, 9 of which are isolated. One of those First Nations has already started building a road to connect to the railway at Ilford, Manitoba from York Landing. Canada has been absent for the most part on these efforts. We have a proposal right now with Canada for an all-weather road. We need approximately 1,200 kilometers to connect our nations to the world. It is typical of Canada to be negligent in meeting the obligations derived from treaties with our nations. It's typical, but it's not acceptable. Our people need the same standard of life that everyone else in this country receives. We have stood up to our treaty obligations to share. Canada has not. There are different people out there that will turn a blind eye, shut their ears to what we are saying. At some point, something has to give. I jokingly told our chiefs yesterday that I will climb on top of the Peace Tower to wave a Canadian flag upside down. Our people are dying. So the question to myself is, was that a joke? Or is it something I really want to do? We have to go through extraordinary lengths to bring attention to our people, the plight of our people. It's not a good picture. Our people attend at medical facilities in our communities, sent home, and they die at home. Or when they go back, because the plane is late, they die on the way or at their destination. The quality of life was mentioned here, the cost of living. It's crazy. People in Ottawa here enjoy a $2 cup of coffee. It costs, what is it, $65 to send a hockey stick home for one of our leaders on a plane. So the 11 nations that are working with Keewatin Tribal Council, 2 of them have an all-weather road. But they use that at their peril. It's been voted the worst road in Manitoba a number of times already, Highway 280. But those other 9, they need the all-weather road, as does the nations from the Anishinaabe region. So I want to thank you, Niki, for this opportunity. Thank you.
I'd now like to call on the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick.
Gusania, good morning. Kaganagitata now this morning. My name is Grand Chief Kathy Merrick for the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. I represent 62 First Nations and 177,000 people. And I'm here today to be able to support our relatives from the Ojibwe Nation. 18,000 people live within that region. And I come here time and time again to speak to issues that I shouldn't have to speak to. It's 2023, and yet we come back and we have to tell our stories over and over again. And yet, our leader, our NDP leader here, has to be here to be able to support as to what we have to share. It's tiring to share these stories. It's heartbreaking to share these stories where our relatives don't have access to a way of life that everybody enjoys in Canada. They have to fly by helicopter. And I've been to their nation. And they have tried to do what's best for them. But we need the governments to support them. The federal government and the provincial government of Manitoba. They need to have access to a better life, as was promised through our treaties. And they don't have that today. And it's a sad day that we have to come here. It's a sad day for our young people that they have to live through the disparities of life. So I question the Prime Minister. I question the government, the federal government, that's supposed to do their fiduciary duty for our people as to why this is happening. Why is this happening in Manitoba? So I leave that, because we have that right. We have that treaty right to have access to a better life for our people. And we don't have that today. So I'm telling the federal government, as I stand here, that you need to do better for our people. We should not live in poverty. We should not live as third world country people in our own homeland. This is our country. So you treat us better. You treat the chiefs here better. They deserve better. And they deserve nothing less than any other Canadian in this country. So we give that support to them today. And that hopefully things good will come out of this press conference today. And we will follow up. We are not going to let it go. So I leave that with you today.
I'd now like to call on the Grand Chief of the Manitoba Kiwetnawi Okimakanak Garrison City.
I'm here as a representative of 26 First Nations in northern Manitoba, and I want to support wholeheartedly Chief Walter Harper as he shared the story of the loss of his mother. It is unfortunate that he has to come here with a story that is most heart-wrenching. I cannot begin to identify how that felt. over 25 years ago that his mom had to leave this world in a helicopter crash because of the lack of proper infrastructure in his nation. And 25 years later, it is inconceivable that we still have communities that do not have airports, because airports are the lifeline for most of our communities, but they don't have that. And it is not acceptable that we still come to Parliament Hill to advocate for things that should have been there 50, 60 years ago. It is unethical that governments continue to ignore the cries of our people. But we stand here in solidarity with all the Grand Chiefs that are behind me. We stand in solidarity because we want to see an airport for this community. There must be an airport. And we want to say together in solidarity, there will be, because we will not stop. We will not stop advocating. We will not stop approaching governments until there is an airport in Waskamak First Nation. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Grand Chief. And now I'd like to call on my colleague, Member of Parliament, Lori Idlout.
Udlakut sivodlang me koyare gumavunga kakoyo kataw si magama takwa adlight nanga katigilugit piligi katigiyumatlugit ikayoktoya kamarikatigo takwa aksokok si majutigiyangit nunavumyono ikpigiyaw katangming mata inungno ikpigiyaw katangming mata takwa pitjutigilugit aksokot jakshunga makita katigiyumabakka. Good morning. I am the Member of Parliament for Nunavut, but I'm also standing as an Inuk in solidarity with my cousins, with the First Nations Métis, the Northern Chiefs here, who I think have expressed why it's so important these days to stand in solidarity. In a world where there's so much division, in a world where our governments are dividing us, we need to show that as First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, that we can stand together, that in solidarity, that we can work together to make sure that we are getting all that we deserve. What we've heard this morning are absolutely true. That there have been too many injustices when it comes to the treatment of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit by these federal governments. I am amplifying what the Northern Manitoba Chiefs have said. There can be no more justification for the lack of investments. We know that there are impending cuts in the tune of $7 billion from Indigenous Services Canada, and through the great work of my colleague, MP Niki, she has also shown that there are billions in gaps for infrastructure gaps. When we talk about the billions in infrastructure gaps, what the Northern Manitoba Chiefs have said is just a small story, unfortunately all too common all across Canada, and this must not be justified anymore. No matter what Canada does, what we are calling for is for some basic needs to be met. Canada was willing to do this when Canada started with the Trans-Canada Highway, and what we need to see are the same level of investments when Trans-Canada Highway was being built. We need that same kind of lifeline for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities when they are asking for basic infrastructure, like the airport, like the all-weather roads. Please listen to what the Alberta Manitoba Chiefs have said, because these infrastructure investments truly will save lives, and the Liberal government has a chance at this point to make that difference, to answer the call, and to make sure that they are doing better so that we do actually see reconciliation.
Thank you very much, Lori. You've heard a clear message today. I also want to acknowledge that here to support Chief Harper, you've heard from Grand Chiefs from across our region. Pardon me, but we also have chiefs as well of neighboring communities and representatives of neighboring communities. I want to acknowledge that Chief Knott of Red Sucker Lake First Nation is here. We have a councillor from St. Teresa Point. We have Chief Hart from Bunabonabee Cree Nation. We have the Chief of Fox Lake Cree Nation. We have Chief Watt of God's Lake First Nation and councillors from God's River First Nation, Manto Sipi. You are hearing a very clear message, and I want to acknowledge as well, very importantly, the other leaders from Wasagamak First Nation and young leaders that are here today in support of Chief Walter Harper's call for an airport in Wasagamak First Nation and all-weather road access for Wasagamak and investment in an all-weather road in the area. This is a matter of life and death, and part of that is the devastating impact of climate change. We all know the infrastructure gap that First Nations are facing. Indigenous Services Canada is aware of the infrastructure gap that First Nations are facing. And what we are saying is that there's no longer any time to wait. As a result of the impacts of climate change, we must act now. You heard about the devastating impacts in terms of health and getting urgent medical care. You know, the fact that a precarious situation like the one that Wasagamak is facing led to the death of Chief Harper's mother. This is heartbreaking. This is the experience, the lived experience of the people of Wasagamak First Nation. You've also heard what it meant to be evacuated by boat in the middle of the night because of wildfires that were closing in on the First Nation a couple of years ago. And we know that with climate change, things are only going to get worse. Indigenous Service Canada must step up, work with Wasagamak First Nation and all partners to build an airport and all-weather access now. We'd like to open to any questions you might have.
Obviously, you've invested $3.5 million to begin construction of that airport. I'm wondering if the changes in Winnipeg with the new premier and the commitments to the Liberals to close the infrastructure gap by 2030, does that give you a sense of trust? Are you still skeptical of how this might pan out?
Right now, what you're asking me, these are the profit dollars that we have a business through our construction. We're constructing, and this is where we get our money. The premier, Wap Kanu, has been elected, and I'm hearing to sit with him and to discuss how he can help.
Next question, I just want to ask about that other road. Can you give me a sense about how, or the changes you've seen in the winter roads with the climate crisis and how important that all-season road is?
Right now, we would have been driving already. November we're already constructing the winter road. Right now, we're not doing anything because of the warm weather. We only have a window of transporting goods 2 months from December and February and parts of January. And then March, the winter road deteriorates. And right now, as we see it, there's no snow, there's no cold, and we're looking at a short window of delivering goods. So the climate change, every year the weather is not cooperating with us, so we need.
My question's for MP Idlout, and then this is also probably for you. Last week, you voted against the federal economic statement to send a message about Liberals' lack of action on Indigenous issues. That was about Nunavut and housing, more specifically. But if you don't see any action by the next budget, there's not a lot of time between now and then, would you be thinking about withholding your vote or voting against it in a similar manner? And I guess, I know you didn't vote against it, but same question for the budget. Would you be willing to vote against it if you didn't see
I'm
sufficient
still
action?
strongly considering it. I'm so thankful to all of the NDP who has shown a huge show of solidarity in supporting MP Leah and I in our vote, because the votes that we did was to signal to the federal government that these lack of investments cannot be allowed to happen anymore, and that if they are not making significant changes, then we will keep working towards making sure that they hear us to start making those investments, like the one that is being asked of here in how do I say your? Wasagamac is asking for basic infrastructure that exists everywhere else in Canada for an airport and an all-weather road. Those investments need to happen now, and that's what we also need to focus on today.
If I can add, of course, Lori Idlout and I work very closely, and I think what we're saying very clearly as the NDP is that the Liberals are abandoning commitments to First Nations, abandoning commitments to Indigenous peoples, and the budget is a real test. You know, this is the Prime Minister Trudeau, who got elected on a promise of reconciliation, and we're not seeing that in action. And certainly the latest news in terms of ISC sunsetting programs and cuts is the opposite of reconciliation. The fact that Wasagamac, in decades after they've clearly made the case for an all-weather road, have done significant work on that, you know, the fact that the federal government is yet to step up is the opposite of reconciliation. And so we will be looking very closely at the budget and pushing with everything that we have and with everyone that's we're so honored to stand with today to make sure that the Liberals step up and commit to building an all-weather road, an airport and for Wasagamac and all-weather road access now. Any other questions? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Merci, and I just wanted to acknowledge that there are leaders as well from Pimicikamak Cree Nation as well. Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone for being here today to support Chief Harper and Wasagamac.